The tendrils of certain memories don't loosen their grip with time. They coil tighter, their chill a ghostly fingerprint on the soul. For me, one such memory clings with the tenacity of winter frost, a relic from the precipice of adulthood, when the world was our oyster and our laughter, we believed, was an impenetrable shield. It was a time when my shadow was always accompanied by three others, Julieta, Camila, and Natalia. We were a constellation, inseparable luminaries navigating the cosmos of high school, our orbits frequently converging at Julieta's sprawling, three-story house, a labyrinth of family life that was, for reasons of convenience and comfort, our undeclared headquarters. If you like this kind of stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Julieta's home, a bustling matriarchy of her mother, sister, little niece, and grandmother, occupied the middle stratum. Below, the first floor hummed with the lives of tenants, while above, the third-floor terrace lay open to the sky, a silent witness. It was on an otherwise unremarkable morning, the schoolyard buzzing with the mundane energy of recess, that the first thread of unease was woven into our tapestry. Julieta, her face a stark canvas of anxiety etched with a nascent, unfamiliar fear, summoned us. We formed a tight circle on the sun-dappled grass, the air thick with unspoken questions as she began, her voice a conspiratorial whisper, as if the very air had ears. For nights now, she breathed. Something unsettling has been happening. Expectation, sharp and sudden, pricked at us. Julieta recounted a string of sleepless nights, the oppressive darkness of her room a torment. One such night, an unquenchable thirst had driven her from her bed towards the dining room, where a small fridge hummed, stocked with cold salvation. The house was a tomb of silence. Tiptoeing to avoid waking her mother or grandmother, she'd reach the fridge, the cool air from the open door a fleeting comfort as she drank. And then, a flicker in her peripheral vision. In the cavernous, shadow-draped living room, barely illuminated by the spectral glow of streetlights bleeding through the panes, something stood, white, motionless. Her head turned, slowly, dread coiling in her stomach. There, mere meters away, was a child. Small, barely reaching a meter in height, clad in what seemed to be light-colored pajamas, white, with delicate pink accents. Long, dark hair was pulled back in a disheveled braid, errant strands plastered to a forehead glistening as if with fevered sweat. Julieta froze, her gaze locking with the child's for a handful of seconds that stretched into an eternity. A primal terror, the instinctual dread of prey cornered by an unseen predator, seized her. The water bottle slipped from her grasp, shattering the silence as it clattered, its contents spreading like a dark stain. She didn't think, she fled, slamming her bedroom door, diving beneath the blankets as if the thin fabric were a fortress. Silence answered. No one stirred. Not her mother, her grandmother, nor her sister. The house remained unnervingly still. By morning, logic attempted to assert itself. Perhaps her sleep-starved mind had conjured phantoms. Perhaps her niece, the only child under that roof, had wandered. But a sliver of doubt, sharp as glass, remained. She casually asked her sister about her niece's white and pink sleepwear. Which pajamas? Her sister's brow furrowed. She produced the only set matching that description. A vibrant pink, long-sleeved sweatshirt and pants combo, emblazoned with a cheerful bear, its edges trimmed in white. Utterly, undeniably different from the short-sleeved, pale nightgown Julieta had witnessed. A glacial chill traced Julieta's spine. It hadn't been her niece. What, then, had met her gaze in the heart of her home? Our collective breath hitched as her story concluded. Natalia, eyes wide, hands trembling, admonished her for her silence. Camila, ever the pragmatist, her expression grave, pressed if other incidents had occurred. Julieta, after a weighted pause, nodded. Since that night, she whispered, the words barely audible, I haven't dared enter the living room after dark. Not alone, not with anyone. But there was one time, 2 nights ago. Her breath hitched. She scanned our faces, the look of someone wrestling with a memory, too horrifying to voice, yet too insistent to suppress. My bladder was screaming. She continued, the rawness of the memory coloring her tone. I had to go to the bathroom. Another pause, heavier this time. The bathroom, it's right beside the living room, and there's a small, high window, a sort of internal casement connecting the hallway to the living room. From there, you can see everything. We shivered. The thought of traversing that haunted threshold was terrifying enough. Julieta had been compelled to. I moved like a wraith, she said, my bedroom light spilling behind me, the door ajar, my escape route. I squeezed my eyes almost shut. I didn't want to see, didn't want to feel, didn't want to know. She swallowed, her throat working. I made it to the bathroom. Safe, I thought. But the true ordeal awaited her return. As I washed my hands, my mind was already on the journey back, on that window. Don't look, I told myself. You mustn't look. She reached for her hands, her skin clammy, cold. I took a step towards the bathroom door, and I heard it. Her voice fractured, a subtle sound, yet hideously clear, like fingernails lightly, insistently, scraping against glass, a delicate, sharp tapping. A communal shudder rippled through us. I don't know why I did it, but I looked. Julieta buried her face in her hands. She was there. The image she painted stole the air from our lungs. The girl, her face and hands pressed flush against the small window, pale skin distorted against the glass. No space between them. Her eyes, so close they appeared viscous, unnervingly intimate. And her fingers, Julieta murmured, the words muffled, her tiny fingers drumming on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. A long, dreadful silence descended. When she finally looked up, her expression was one of haunted disbelief. The worst of it, the absolute worst. I swear she smiled at me. Her voice trembled, threatening to break. I don't remember getting back to my room, only slamming the door, cocooning myself under the covers. But that smile, it was imprinted on the inside of my eyelids. She met our gaze again, a flicker of something new in her eyes. I felt mocked, she whispered, as if I'd stumbled into a carefully laid snare. As if that thing possessed a knowledge I couldn't fathom. A knot of pure, unadulterated tension cinched itself around us. By now, Natalia wasn't the only one visibly terrified. Even Camila, our bastion of courage, had shed her confident veneer. Her stunned silence was more eloquent than any outcry. I found myself caught in a sickening gyre of fear and a strange, detached fascination. The terror was real, yet buffered by the fact that it wasn't my direct experience. Still, what gnawed at me most was Julieta's resilience, or perhaps her denial. How had she borne this spectral siege alone, without uttering a word to her family? How did she continue to exist within those walls, knowing that presence was always lurking, a shadow in the periphery? Recess ended, its shrill bell a jarring intrusion. We drifted back to class, our thoughts still ensnared in the gloom of Julieta's living room. For agonizing hours stretched before us, the academic drone failing to dispel the chilling unease that had become our unwelcome companion. Our eyes would meet across the classroom, telegraphing silent, unanswered questions. Days later, our project methodology class presented us with the Herculean task of crafting the theoretical framework for our graduation research. Naturally, Julieta's house was designated our war room. That afternoon, after the final school bell, we made a ritualistic stop for provisions. Ice cream, cookies, a desperate, unspoken attempt to overlay the impending afternoon with a veneer of normalcy. Our laughter a little too bright, a little too forced. Julieta's grandmother, a woman whose warmth had enveloped us all over the years, making her an honorary matriarch to our tight-knit group, greeted us with her usual affectionate smile. She insisted on feeding us lunch, an offer our suddenly ravenous stomachs couldn't refuse. We gathered around the familiar dining table, the conversation deliberately light, skating over trivialities. It was then I saw it. Julieta's gaze, unfocused, lost, fixed on a point beyond the tangible, a point deep within the shadowed recesses of the living room. The exact spot. In that instant, her unspoken dread became my own. A pang of vicarious anxiety, sharp and cold, shot through me. Instinctively, I reached for her hand, my fingers closing over hers in a silent offering of solidarity. She blinked, her focus returning, her eyes a swirling vortex of gratitude and profound distress, as if her very presence in that house was an unbearable burden. I understood. The weight of it settled upon me then. Suddenly, the familiar walls seemed to press inwards. The light from the windows felt accusatory. The innocuous doorway to the living room pulsed with a sinister potential. I swallowed, a dry, difficult motion, and forced my gaze back to my plate, hoping against hope that the afternoon would pass without incident. Lunch concluded, the mundane ritual of clearing dishes a brief respite. We ascended to Julieta's room, our sanctuary, arranging ourselves around her desk. But the oppressive atmosphere clung to us like a shroud. A gentle knock, and Julieta's grandmother peeked in, informing us she was off to collect Julieta's niece from school. Her departure, though routine, cast a pall. The house was now solely ours. Empty, or so we hoped. A shared glance, heavy with unspoken apprehension. Camila, true to form, broke the spell with a practical admonition. Focus. We tried. For a blessed half hour, a fragile peace held. Then a tap. Faint, barely there, but undeniably there. From the bedroom window, for heads swiveled in unison. Julieta frowned, her voice firm as she asked Camila to investigate. Camila, without a flicker of hesitation, rose and swept the curtain aside. Nothing, just the empty afternoon air. The ensuing silence offered no comfort. Suddenly, sharper knocks, more insistent, this time from the wall adjoining the next room. Who sleeps there? I ventured, my voice thin. Julieta's expression was grim. No one. That room's empty. Dad uses it when he visits, but that's rare. Wild possibilities bloomed in the sudden vacuum of logic. An intruder? A childish prank, though the niece was absent. Camila, ever proactive, declared she was going to check. Natalia's pleas to stay were brushed aside. She slipped out, leaving the door ajar. Seconds distended, each tick of an unseen clock a hammer blow against our fraying nerves. She returned, her face a mask of confusion. Nothing, she announced. The other room is empty. So is the niece's. No one. As the words left her lips, Julieta's eyes darted to something behind Camila. The door to the living room. Closed moments ago, it now stood ajar, a sliver of darkness yawning in the gap. And within that sliver, a shadow, amorphous, yet distinctly two-toned, black and white. Julieta fumbled for her phone, fingers surprisingly steady as she activated the video camera, zooming in. We clustered behind her, breaths held captive, eyes glued to the small screen. The shadow shifted, a minute movement, yet enough to cause the door to sway almost imperceptibly. Natalia emitted a choked, strangled gasp. Panic, swift and visceral, erupted. Screams tore from our throats, all except Camila, who bolted to the bedroom door, slamming it shut with a resounding crack. She spun to face us, huddled like frightened sheep on Julieta's bed. "Calm down," she commanded, her voice a lifeline in the rising tide of hysteria. Before another word could be uttered, the assault recommenced. Knocks from the window and the adjacent wall. Simultaneously. No prank. No single person could be in two places at once. No human person. Natalia dissolved into racking sobs. I want out of here. A glance at my phone. 5 o'clock. My own departure time loomed. Yet the thought of crossing that bedroom threshold was paralyzing. We abandoned all pretense of work, the television flickering to life, a meaningless distraction. Silence, thick and suffocating, filled the room. A knock on the bedroom door. We jumped, a collective spasm of terror. But it was Julieta's grandmother, her smile a beacon of normalcy. "I'm back, girls. Brought you some fresh fruit." Behind her, the little niece, clinging shyly to her skirt, offered a sweet, innocent greeting before darting into Julieta's embrace. "Did you just arrive?" Julieta asked, her voice strained. "Yes, dear," the little girl chirped. "Grandma bought me an ice cream, so we were a bit slow." Our eyes met, hearts hammering against our ribs like trapped birds. No one had been in the house, but something had. Something had been our unseen, unwelcome companion. With family home, the oppressive weight in the room seemed to lift, yet the tendrils of tension remained. Julieta, buoyed by a renewed sense of safety, finally ventured from the room. Natalia, however, was a fragile, trembling wreck. Her fear was a palpable entity, her tear-filled eyes darting towards the door as if expecting a monstrous apparition. "I'm not staying," she whispered, her voice raw with a primal urge to flee. Camila and I exchanged weary glances, attempting to soothe her, reasoning that an abrupt departure would be rude. But Natalia was resolute, her fingers digging into my sweater like talons, her trembling transmitting a bone-deep chill. We eventually coaxed her into staying, at least for the fruit. The grandmother returned, her offering of sliced fruit and juice a small island of normalcy in our sea of unease. The clinking of utensils was a brutal sound against the backdrop of our racing thoughts. Each mouthful was heavy, a struggle to swallow past the lump of fear in our throats. It was I who finally shattered the fragile silence. "Julieta, you had to tell them. You can't carry this alone." Her head shake was immediate, lips pressed into a thin, stubborn line. "I won't scare Mom or Grandma." A surge of exasperation, sharp and urgent, rose within me. "And what about tonight?" I pressed. No room for gentle persuasion. "We go home. We sleep. You stay here, alone, with that. Are you content to just ignore it until it?" Julieta's glare was fierce, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She knew. Her stubbornness was a self-imposed sentence to solitary torment. A sigh, heavy with resignation, escaped her. "Okay, tonight. When Mom gets home, I'll tell them." We ate in a strained silence, the house itself seeming to lean in, listening. After washing up, our goodbyes were muted, our smiles taut. Our final admonition to Julieta: "If anything happens, anything, call us." She nodded, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips, but her eyes were haunted by a terrifying blend of fear and resignation. We walked away, each step feeling like a betrayal, leaving her to face the encroaching night. Her silhouette in the doorway, watching us depart, was the last we saw before the door clicked shut, sealing her within. Behind us, the house stood, silent, monolithic, a patient predator biding its time. That night, the darkness in my own room felt animate, watchful. I locked my door, a futile gesture against an intangible dread. I recounted the day's horrors to my mother and aunt. Devoutly religious, they crossed themselves repeatedly, their faces a mixture of horrified disbelief and pious fear. A question throbbed in my mind. Should I show them the video? Julieta's video. The shadow in the doorway. Alone, I steeled myself to examine it. Julieta had shared it to our group chat, but until that moment, courage had failed me. Cranking up the brightness yielded little. The image remained a murky, distorted tableau of dread. A visceral revulsion warred with a morbid compulsion. I opened an editing app, tweaking contrast, playing with saturation, deepening shadows, sharpening highlights. And then, it emerged. My phone clattered to the floor as if seared by an infernal heat. From the pixelated gloom, a face had resolved. Grayish, with features that hinted of the feminine, but were fundamentally, terrifyingly other. Withered skin, deeply furrowed at the brow and around eyes. Eyes of a flat, dead, bluish gray that seemed to absorb the very light. And the smile. Julieta's smile. The smile that had paralyzed her. A rictus that stretched too far, too wide, as if the lips were on the verge of tearing, splitting the face in two. This was no child. This was no human. It was a masquerade, a crude, horrifying facsimile of innocence. Its very imperfection, a screaming testament to its true, monstrous nature. Shaking, I forwarded the enhanced video to our group. Look closely. Tell me you see it too. The twin blue check marks of confirmation appeared almost instantly. Messages from Natalia and Camila flooded in, a torrent of horrified keystrokes. What in God's name, I asked that? This isn't real. It can't be real. But from Julieta, there was only silence. Not that night. Not in the days that followed. Her digital presence vanished. Perhaps she deliberately disconnected, a desperate attempt to sever herself from the encroaching horror, as if ignoring the abyss would prevent it from gazing back. I showed my mother the original, unedited footage. She watched for mere seconds, her face contorting in revulsion before she looked away. "Delete that," she commanded, her voice shaking. "That's an invitation for evil into this house. You shouldn't have watched it, let alone kept it." I complied, deleting it in her presence. But the enhanced version, the one that showed it, remained a toxic secret on my device. Sleep became a battlefield. Each time I closed my eyes, the face materialized, that grotesque, unhinged smile stretching, morphing, an abomination of human expression. I'd jerk awake, gasping, cold sweat clinging to my skin, my phone a malevolent siren call from my nightstand. My mother was right. On the third night of this torment, I deleted the enhanced video. I can't say sleep came easier, but the digital ghost was banished, if not the one seared into my memory. The video was gone, an ephemeral horror lost to the ether, but its imprint remained. 11 years have spun their course since that night. I am 26 now. The memory remains, not softened by time, but honed to a terrifying clarity. It remains because the story didn't end with a deleted file or a friend's silence. It remains because I know what horrors bloomed next within the walls of Julieta's house. And that, you see, is a terror of an entirely different order. Thank you for watching until the end. You are amazing, and we would love to have you back. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for being with us.